Hello, everyone. Welcome to Auto Asphyxiation. It's Lark.
And Kimberly.
I'm sorry that it's late tonight. This time we're doing it late in the evening. But I just came from Philadelphia, and I'm in Philadelphia because I'm like this fellow for next city, and I was telling all of um the fellows there that are younger than me. I said, "Hey, you know what? You know how they told you, like, I'm proof of certain things. No matter, essentially in our life, when we say me and Kimberly are age Generation X, they told you if you're a woman, as long as you don't have kids, you'll be fine because it's the kids that's making women poor. It's not the vagina because the world's not sexist. It's just irresponsible whores with children. They're poor because they're irresponsible whores and they have kids. And if they didn't have kids,
Then they would be absolutely wealthy.
everything would be completely fine. And I said, hey, I'm here to tell you. Like some people are kind of like, if I hadn't had this little kid, I would have had this amazing life. And I always tell them, no, you wouldn't have. Not not trying to be negative, but it wasn't the kid that messed up your life. I'm not saying that anybody's saying that, but I think I can tell. I can look at so many women are just kind of like, not so many, but some women are like, if I'd only not had this little rug rat, I could have been a CEO. I could have been a contender. No, you wouldn't have been. I mean, I don't know. What do you want to say about that, Kimberly?
Oh no, I have to agree because I am also a childless woman, and I'm not bathing in riches and sitting on my couch eating bonbons all day long covered in diamonds.
I thought the career track would just open up for me. I remember this is what I remember kind of like saying like, "Hey, I don't have kids, so you don't have to worry about me." I don't know if I actually ever said that, but I think somewhere in my 20s I might have thought like, "Oh, I'll be ahead of this woman because." And I mean, I don't think I was like trying to think that way, but it's like capitalism has you thinking in these weird ways. And I'll just tell you, like, really, now we're at the age where our friends' kids are becoming adults. So we're starting to see people our age again because all both of us were like had to be friends with like 20-year-olds because essentially everyone our age was raising children. Um, and you would think that we would be way ahead of these other women in regards to like career, money, finances. Absolutely not. That is totally not true. Essentially, go ahead.
I think maybe like we get more sleep. And we do have like there is a certain level of privilege. But conversely, like also not having children, at least in my workspaces, kind of screws you because when people know that you don't have kids, that means you can cover all sorts of shifts for the people that do. And they just use that to like their advantage. Like, well, it's not like you have kids. What else do you have to do? A life?
Well, no, I mean, the thing is that women only exist to service men and to service their heirs, and to take care of their heirs. So if you're not doing that, then why would you need to do anything? Like, why would you? I think the thing is just interesting is that if you're a woman, and interesting story I have, lawyer, she's a translator. She knows how to do all kinds of really interesting, fun stuff. And I have a friend whose husband is also a lawyer and a translator for an international firm. And I asked him, I said, I know most here in the United States, most translators, a lot of translators, at least on the East Coast, are women. And it seems like they don't necessarily have jobs. And I was like, hey, why is that? Why don't these global firms hire, women who have credentials and stuff? So it's like, okay, you spend time, you get a PhD and maybe like a foreign, like not foreign language, a language outside of English, a Latin-based language or an Asian language. You get your law degree. So a lot of times by that time you're in your 30s or something like that. And so he asked me about my friend. He says, well, is she hot? And I was like, what? He's like, well, if you're a woman, I want to be, he's my friend just to be my friend is German, of East German ancestry, so he's very blunt. So he just said, really, if you're a woman and if we can't have sex with you, we really have no reason to have you around. So essentially, you know, if I guess if we're over a certain point, then well, what's the point of having us around? Like if you're young, that's why it's like weird. When you're young, you can get jobs as secretary or an assistant. But as far as getting like, there's what they call it the glass ceiling. Like you can't, you might be able to get a job as an event coordinator. You can plan the events. Although maybe they'll give it a title like a director. You could be an event director, but essentially you just get as you get like essentially as a woman, your degrees are essentially just degrees to give you some various secretarial tasks. Like as far as thinking of the big ideas, coming up with coming up with the big ideas, coming up with the narrative, coming up with the thesis. They don't want you for that. They want you to help someone else, usually a man, to execute these ideas. To the big idea. And I think the thing that why this is a problem is because when you have that job, you don't get paid enough money to live. So,
That Yeah, and that's a problem, like that's a problem. Like everybody should be paid a living wage no matter what you work. But, when you get women with multiple degrees, lots of job experience, lots of life experience, lots of stuff to bring to the table, and they can't get work, or the work that they get is like bottom of the barrel, like typical women jobs, secretary, assistant, coordinators, planners, what have you. It really limits people to where they can live, and how they can move forward with their lives.
and the thing is weird is like we're in this weird spot where we can't pay enough. Here's the thing. There are certain places that women can't necessarily live by themselves. So if you're a single woman, you can't necessarily live in the cheapest places. So you have to live somewhere where you could actually be accessible, or I hate using the term safe, but you have to live in the places where it's like you feel like you can get around and like go somewhere without being harassed, without being attacked. Because also too, if you're a woman, and or you're just a person who's smaller. It could be a guy, you could be a person that's smaller. You end up being a target in certain neighborhoods. And also too, it's kind of like I don't know how to explain it. It's just it's very a lot of times women they do ride share because they don't want to take public transit because they don't feel safe taking public transit. Because and the reason why this is often because the where public transit is they don't upkeep the area all the time. They literally they want people to not take public transit. They don't want it to be attractive. So it's kind of like in order to punish you, institutions in order to punish you, they kind of um make areas where public transit is abandoned. I know like I remember like kind of like by my house there is there's a light rail and the light rail is actually pretty nice, but there were people who didn't have houses who were kind of hanging out on the benches there. So they removed the benches. But I said this, you could actually develop the area around there. I mean, the area is filled with like, it has like trash, it has like it's abandoned, it's like a big strip mall. I'm like, well, yeah, people who don't have a place to live are going to hang out there because it seems like nobody else is there. People are
That
only there. Go
part,
ahead.
that part, like that's the thing is that like people that don't have a place to go and people that avoid shelters, and we know why the unhoused avoid shelters, they can oftentimes be very dangerous, especially for women. They do go to places that look like they're run down and that there's not a lot of people around to not cause a bother.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. And so it's kind of like you're saying, oh, we don't want, but then at the same time, it's like we don't want to build up any air. We don't want to put any development here. We don't want to it's not even about putting up development that's expensive, but it's just about like, oh, you have a strip mall and you have dumpsters and you have nothing there. But, and then you're going wondering, why are the people who don't have houses, why are they hanging out here? And the thing is that in areas where men who go to work, and especially middle class white men go to work, they're not abandoned. They have coffee shops, they have bathrooms, they have easy places to access. So it's just ridiculous. And it's just kind of like I remember I didn't have a car for a long time in Los Angeles. I didn't drive at all. Like it was like I didn't have a car. I didn't even renew my driver's license. I had a California ID because I was so anti-driving because I saw inconvenient truth. And something I don't ever talk about really was that I was regularly harassed on public transit. And I don't just mean by words. I mean, people literally grabbed me, groped me, touched my hair. Like, it was madness. It was constant. Like, it was constant. Um, and the final straw was I was taking I want to say which bus it was. It was in Chinatown. And this guy had grabbed me. I'll tell you something else. My, my third husband, I married him because I was trying to do like art in downtown LA and I essentially needed a bodyguard. I feel horrible saying that. He was a very nice person. He's very cool, but I essentially needed a bodyguard because I was getting like just attacked on the street. Like it, especially too in LA was so bad because, they say nobody walks in LA for me to like not being a car, I was getting harassed by so many people, just random dudes. The police kept thinking I was a prostitute because just like, why is someone like you outside? And I'm like, I remember saying, I'm going to work. Well, what are you doing here? If you're going to work, why are you at the bus stop? Like, I'm like, what? It's 6 o'clock in the morning. How am I a prostitute at 6 o'clock okay, okay, fine. I don't know what. Anyway, I'm just kind
Again,
of
those guys coming off the night shift.
yeah, like yeah, and it was just wild to me. I have to say there's a thing really that if you're a black woman, if you don't have a Securitas outfit uniform on or a nursing uniform on, and you look a certain way, like you don't have they think you're a prostitute. I don't know how, and I'll tell you something. Even when I used to go to hotels and stuff, people thought I was a prostitute. Up and the only reason people stopped harassing me when I used to go to conferences was because that Me Too thing happened, which was actually good for me because before Me Too, I swear to God, before Me Too, when I went to a hotel to do anything, people thought I was a prostitute. I remember some guy actually asked me to leave. He says, "You can't work here." And
Jesus Christ.
I was like, "What do you mean I can't work here? I'm part of the conference." "Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't look like you're part of the conference." He's like, "You're a very pretty lady. You don't look like you're part of the conference." I was like, thanks, I
I, I
guess.
think.
What the fuck was that? I mean, anyway, so we don't get paid money. We are essentially like, and that's the whole thing. And it's not just because people think, oh, it's because of the children thing. It's a child. You take out having a kid. We still make less money. We still are in situations where we have to pay for rideshare if you don't want. I'll tell you something. If it wasn't for the fact that I was all about, oh, you know what? I saw Inconvenient Truth, and I had a whole newspaper column writing about not using public transit. And so my job was to not drive a car. So I was taking public transit. But I mean, really, in my head, if this was in Los Angeles, it's not like this in New Jersey. People in New Jersey and New York, people walk around outside, so guys aren't so bad about me. In regards to just trying to
Existing.
existing and walking around. Because in LA, it's really like in LA, really, if you walk around like you're just open, it's just open season on you because you literally must not matter. Because if you mattered, you would have a car. So if you're a woman and you walk around, I mean, in Los Angeles, I know you were in the desert, it wasn't like that, but in LA, it was so like that.
No, it could be like that in certain areas of the desert. And the first time that I ever got catcalled in my life was when I first moved to like Arizona and like the Phoenix area. I was like, what? Like, What's that? Like,
Because in the West, if you're in the West in the West, and this includes Phoenix, Las Vegas, LA, the Southwest specifically, if you're walking around and you're a woman, you must be a prostitute. I used to go to Immaculate Heart High School, and Immaculate Heart High School is on Sunset Boulevard. I don't know if you guys know this, but folks in the studio audience, Sunset Boulevard is known for streetwalkers, prostitutes, adult sex workers, etc. Like essentially from downtown area to like Malibu, like to like to like the West Side. So it's interesting. You see the sex workers get like considerably more high profile looking. Like by the time, okay, when I was a kid, the really expensive prostitutes on Sunset wore LA gear, LA gear tennis shoes. Um, that's how you knew
And
they
like
were.
people don't realize that about Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, they're everywhere. They're on each part. But the thing is that there are different there are different levels of prostitutes. But Sunset Boulevard on La Brea, essentially, east of La Brea, you had part of adult worker, and they were a little bit less better off. They were like they kind of looked really bad. They looked bad. But if you went to Beverly Hills, it looked really they looked like supermodels. And then you have Santa Monica Boulevard, and that's where the boys were. So if you're on Santa Monica Boulevard, so I mean, we had all of these people, doing. I mean, and okay, I guess this is what I'm saying. The reason why I'm bringing this up is saying that there's this very weird thing in LA where people generally did not walk around, and they felt if you walked around that you didn't matter. And essentially you were open for business. That's essentially what they thought. But I mean, here's the thing though. Something interesting that happened to me is that I was in New York and on the subway, as I often am, and I happened to run across one of those new subway seats for anti-poor people seats. So, you can't sleep on them.
Yeah.
And as you know, Kimberly, I don't view myself as a short person. I'm an average height person. I was telling me in Generation X land, I'm actually a taller woman. Now all these women are like 6 feet tall, so I'm not super tall anymore. But I used to be viewed as tall. People used to be like, "Oh my God, like Lark is tall."
You're very tall to me.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing is weird. I was too short for the anti bench. I'm too tall for that. I mean, not too tall. I'm too short. It went to my back, and I'm like, what's it gonna do for like if you couldn't even do it at all. Because if I can't use it, you definitely can't use it. Not trying to say anything, but I'm just saying. I was like, how am I too short for this thing? I'm like, it's like literally like just did they just go by the average Western European male?
Yeah.
Even I don't even think an Italian guy could use it.
And they do that too because like the more like they go by like the average American male is around 5'10".
Yeah.
And like so they go by around that, and the more uncomfortable it is the better, because the less likely you are to sleep in it, and therein lies the whole reason why they placed it there.
I'm just I just thought in my head, I'm like, so it's just making it for so like so oh, I guess they probably go the average commuter into Manhattan. So they don't really care about me because I'm not the average commuter into Manhattan. And I feel like, you know, even like think about these housing laws. Like they have this thing where they have it like housing laws, but the median income, the average median income, and it's kind of like a bane of the existence because essentially it's the bane the annual. This is how they assign affordable housing. And affordable housing can go up to 120% of the average income in the area. So if you make, and 120%, that could be over $100,000 a year. That's low income housing. Because people don't realize that's affordable housing. That could be affordable housing. And most women, even with degrees, are qualifying for low income housing. And they usually don't have that in these different They don't have that, and they don't mind having. And they don't mind having affordable housing for seniors, but this whole idea of having affordable housing for women, that was what seemed like they act like that would be unfair. But how are women supposed to live in Manhattan and Brooklyn? I mean, we're spending way more. Women spend 79%. This is according to like some rent hot singles index. In New York City, women spend 79% of their income on studio rent versus 60% for men. So that means that even if a woman has a studio apartment, she's spending 80% of her money on that apartment. That's not even talking about the fact that a lot of times that woman might be doing rideshare because they might not feel safe like taking public transit. And like what I said, use Paso, Texas, women spend 34% of their income on rent versus 18% for men. That's outrageous.
Even just 34% sounds like a dream in comparison because of where we live. Like, like I've spent like 80 to 90% of my income on rent before, and it is a grind. Like it's exhausting. Like you don't have time to think about anything else but making your rent.
And that's what they want. They want, I mean, said single women spend 124% more of their income on rent than a single man in every major US city. And I think it's just it says 67% in New Jersey, 67% of single women renters are cost burdened, spending over 30% of their income on housing. This is just ridiculous. And I mean, I think this is you know, this is also, I think this is about, as a person who has an economics background, this is behavior economics. This is a way to force women to get married to men, and because they need here, hegemony needs for us to take care of these men. They need us to like cook their dinner, wash their clothes, um, make sure they get up in the morning. And they don't want us working outside the home. They pay us little bits of money because the whole idea is that we're supposed to get married and we're supposed to take care of the people who are doing the real work, the people who are, participating in production, which they view as not us. We assist production, but we aren't actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Which is wild because if you look at PhDs who have girlfriends and wives who type their paper, take care of them, do much better than people who are PhDs who are men who are not married. A lot of times don't graduate. They don't get tenure. They don't get graduate. The ones that get tenure, graduate, have these great careers are always married or have a girlfriend that's sitting there and making sure they can do all this stuff. And they don't even they don't consider that as actual um they don't consider that. I don't think that, our society considers that. And essentially they have us in a situation where we have to get married. And what if you can't get married?
What if you can't get married? Like, yeah, exactly. Like, what about disabled people who are on like partial disability or full disability? They could lose that if they get married. They can lose their benefits if they get married. What about people that absolutely just do not want to get married? That's a real thing too. Like, what about people that just don't want to get married that or have been married and don't want to get remarried? Like, there's all sorts of different facets of the kind of women that we're talking about, single women. Like, it's not just all spurned spinsters living with their million cats, but like, that sounds like a really comfortable life, to be honest with you. There's all sorts of kinds of people that are single and for very personal reasons.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's like, but it's like this, in behavior economics, they're making all these policies to essentially force you, like smoke you out, like essentially like we're gonna like keep, turning up the heat, turning up the fire until you just like give up and go, okay, fine, I'll marry a man because clearly you're gonna kill me if I don't. Like, clearly, if I'm not married, you plan on killing me. And I've always kind of made this comment or made this kind of joke, and like, um, there's a part of me that's just like, this is bullshit. But there's a part of me that's always like trying to get my friends like married off. Like, oh, I know a guy who's by himself. You could be part of his life so that you don't have to die, in the street. And I mean, I tell people that, and here's the thing. I've talked about the fact that, the upcoming epidemic of women over 50 of all cultural backgrounds who are going to be homeless. And I've told you, Kimberly, I wrote a story about this, and they cut out when I said white women too. They were like, "Oh, absolutely not, absolutely not." And I was like, "What? Are you out on the streets? Are you seeing what's happening to people? Are you seeing like the data? It's clear to me." And plus, too, I remember in LA, I remember just seeing like all of these women of all cultural backgrounds on the street. And I was like, what the hell is going on? I was meeting people. Well, here's another thing. I know a lot of people who live in SROs in Los Angeles. And SROs are single resident occupancy hotels. And they're essentially what a lot of people who you see begging on the streets in Los Angeles, a lot of them lived in SROs. Those SROs are like $200, $300. When those go away, what happens to those people?
Exactly. There's a lot of people in New Jersey that are in SROs. There's a lot of people, we had to get a hotel room one night over the summer because of the heat wave. We lost power, and as I live on the third floor, it gets unbearably hot here. So we had to take our pets and go to a hotel. And most of the people in that hotel were living there. The same thing like when I went down to Wildwood last year, the hotel that we stayed at, most of the people that were in that hotel were living there.
Yeah, so this is and as and listeners have heard, my sister has had bouts of homelessness, and she also like have lived in hotels because um the single resident occupancy, and they weren't actually hotels in LA, they were apartments. They were a lifeline for people, and we've gotten rid of these little small bachelor apartments that actually are really good for people who, if they didn't have that, they'd be homeless. They're like the bare minimum. Like you get a microwave, sometimes you get a bathroom, sometimes you get a shared bathroom. $200 to $300. If you split this way, your general relief check, which was like kind of like the welfare check you get if you don't have kids, is like $300. You would get $300. You could pay your SRO rent with that $300. Essentially, 100% of your income's going to your rent, which is like still just awful. And then you would get food stamps, um you get $200, so it's like essentially you could live on $600. But I mean, it was a horrible life, horrible, but at least you weren't on the street. And now people don't even have that. They don't even have that now.
There's a lot of people in nursing homes that are like that. There's a lot of people in nursing homes that are mildly disabled, like having like an amputee or something like that. And they were in a nursing home for rehab after surgery or what have you. And they just decided, this is good. I like this. And, they get Medicaid and Social Security. Their Social Security, 100% of it goes to the nursing home, except for perhaps 10 to $30, depending on your overall costs. And, a lot of those people if they were not in that long-term care environment, would be homeless.
Yeah. And these are going to, and this is going to be women who are not married to men. This is going to be a lot of them. And I don't know if essentially people are ready for that. I mean, the thing is that, not having the income, not being able to make the money, having to worry about certain situations and having to spend all this extra money on not only this education. Another thing we don't talk about, the fact that a woman who is a nurse, whether it be a CNA, LPA, a teacher's assistant, those jobs cost more than becoming a police officer or a fireman. Because if you're a police officer, they pay for your training. If you're a fire person, they pay for your training. In jobs that women do, we have to pay for our own training. No matter how far, like, even like I said, even if you're a CNA, you still have to pay for your training. Or you got to get a student loan. It's not the same. If you want to become a cop, you just go, you sign up, and they just train you. Yeah. And with that, let's wrap this up. And do you have anything else to say, Kimberly?
Well, just to go off on your note about like CNA nurses, like especially with CNAs and LPNs in nursing homes, like there's no health insurance. If there is health insurance, it's hardly affordable. I've not been in a position where I had to take the health insurance on at a place like that, but I know a lot of people who have had to. The unions are not strong. Oftentimes the unions are representing completely different fields of work. And it is, it's a problem. It's going to be an even bigger problem, especially with the AI basically coming to take everybody's jobs. And then the AI bubble that is going to eventually burst. Like these are things that are going to be issues upcoming. And I think that everybody needs to open up your eyes and pay a little bit more attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah, it's we're going into a very hard period, a period that we need to organize in, a period that we need to, not put gender on the back burner. That's not an option for you because if you do that, if you allow them to minimize issues that are gendered, for the bigger picture, whatever the hell that means. You're setting yourself up for oppression in your own household. You don't want to be oppressed in your own house. And with that, please subscribe and check us out. And we'll be doing some cool things soon, and we'll let you know.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.